Disclaimer: the following episode contains spoilers for Doctor Who Revolution of the Daleks. Don't go crying to Mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned. Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. And this week, you say you want a revolution. Well, I don't. We're talking about Doctor Who! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. My name is Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we're talking about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. It's a brand new year, so let's not get a brand new guest, but we love him all the same. It's Mark Russell!
Happy New Year, Capers!
Happy New Year to you, Mark. It's so great to have you here.
We're free. 2020 is dead and gone.
And now we get 2020 Part 2, because I don't have my hopes high for this year. Okay, so Capers, we were gonna do a review of the brand new Pixar movie, Soul, because Mark and I both watched it, and we both really enjoyed it. It's an excellent film full of intriguingly accessible existential topics that's great for both children and adults. It's got some of the best animation that's ever been done by any film studio, bar none. It's got really intriguing characters, excellent voice acting, and just a myriad of things that I think are personally brilliant with it. Then I watched the Doctor Who New Year's Day special, and I thought, well, fuck you, Soul, I'm talking about this now!
Let's punish ourselves.
Yes, because we are gluttons for punishment. Because, I mean, which would you prefer, Capers? An hour and a half, maybe an hour of Mark and me talking at length, just gushing about how good this truly excellent movie is? Or an hour and a half of us ranting about a British sci-fi series that has frankly gone into severe decline?
Gushing!
Well, tough shit, it's my show, I can do what I like! Oh, God. So, before we go any further, we got to talk about Doctor Who. I first watched Doctor Who when I was 12 years old, thanks to Russell T Davies, and since then I've been a mega fan. Even going back to watch some of the old serials pre-Russell T Davies for various different Doctors. I watched like the Fourth Doctor, a little bit of the Fifth Doctor, and the Sixth Doctor. And I found it, it's quirky, it's quaint, it's cheesy, it's weird, but it's also got a lot of really excellent stuff going on. Some really intriguing storylines, and frankly, the new series I thought was equally good, if not better. It incorporated, modern filmmaking techniques and storytelling practices, more fleshed out, well-rounded characters exploring unique themes, and it was really fantastic. Then Stephen Moffat came along, and yeah, I didn't think it was as good, but it was still good. Honestly, looking back at Moffat, I felt like I was too hard on him. Like, my problem with Moffat was, I think it was a lot of people's problem with him, he was a bit too much of a Doctor Who fanboy. Like, so was Russell T Davies, but he wasn't afraid of giving the character flaws and making us think, oh, this character is maybe not as great as we've all built him up to be. And Moffat sort of just thought the Doctor was the best person in the whole world and gave him loads of speeches about just how awesome he was. Yada-da-da-da. But you know what? Fine. A lot of the stories were still great. I love Matt Smith. I love Peter Capaldi. I love lots of the companions, Amy Pond, Bill. And, it was not as memorable to me as the Russell T Davies run. But you know what? It was still good. Then Chris Chibnall came along, and everyone said, oh, Chris Chibnall, the guy who did Broadchurch? Well, we all really like Broadchurch, so obviously this must be good, right? Right? Yeah, this new series of Doctor Who under Chris Chibnall has not been great. We've had 2 seasons so far, and so I've talked about this before, so let's just briefly get my opinions about this out of the way. What's good about it? First and foremost, Jodie Whittaker.
Agreed.
Yeah, Jodie Whittaker is fantastic as the 13th Doctor, and everyone's like, oh, we can't have a female Doctor Who, what's next, Jane Bond? Yes, you fucking can, it's fine, and she's great.
Deal with it.
Yeah, and who else do I like? Surprisingly, I really like Bradley Walsh.
Oh, he's great. He's the best part of this thing.
I thought he was going to be the worst part of it, but actually he was one of my favorite parts of it. He was Bradley Walsh is sort of a jobbing British actor who's mainly known for like being on a few game shows over here. Yeah, and I really liked him. I thought he was really good. I also really liked that he might have introduced international audiences to the phrase cockle as part of the new lexicon. I'm okay with that. And I liked Mandip Gill as Yasmin Khan. I felt like the actor was really good, but I don't think the character got enough attention unless the episode just revolved around her.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it sort of faded in the background. I did not like Tosin Cole as Ryan Sinclair. I thought the character was annoying, and I thought the actor wasn't good enough to really portray him in a likable way. There were a few episodes where I actually thought, oh, actually, this Tosin Cole guy, he's giving a great performance. He's doing really well. And then the next episode, he'd be back to being kind of monotone, bland, and just dull and really annoying. The character, especially, was annoying. The performance, not so much, but the character was really annoying. Everything just revolved around his daddy issues. And worse, him forcing his daddy issues on other people. There's an episode where there's this guy who's pregnant, because it's sci-fi and you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up! And he's like saying, oh, I don't really want to be dad. This was an accident, so I'm just going to give the baby up. And he seems at peace with that, but then Ryan Sinclair comes in and he says, oh, no, you got to stick with it. You got to be there for your kid. You have to. And it's like, no, he doesn't. Like, great if he does want to. Like, if the character clearly did want to be a dad, but was just scared of responsibility, and maybe that's what they were going for, but that's not how it came across, then fine. But instead, it's him forcing on his parental abandonment issues on other people. And it seemed like every other conversation was just about him and his dad. And it's just like, I don't care. The only part of that I did like was his growing relationship with his step-grandfather, played by Bradley Walsh. That relationship between the two of them, I thought was really cool. And in this latest episode, it's sort of put on the back burner a little bit, at least as far as Ryan's character is concerned, but not to Bradley Walsh. So it seems like Bradley Walsh's character is far more interested in the relationship than Tosin's is, and it's just that's a whole other problem. I thought a lot of the themes of the season, I'm sorry for ranting, but I've been wanting to get this off my chest for quite a long while. I thought all the themes were kind of backwards and weird. Some of the storylines were sometimes intriguing, but most of the time forgettable. And then we come to my breaking point.
Oh boy, right, lock and load.
The Timeless Child / The Death of Gallifrey Redux. So, when Russell T Davies brought back Doctor Who, he casually mentioned, I say casually, it was actually a huge part of the character's development, that there was this thing called the Time War, which destroyed the Doctor's home planet of Gallifrey, which he'd always has a tenuous relationship with, but now that it was gone and he was the last of the Time Lords, it was like, oh shit, now he's truly a lost soul. And it was really intriguing. But then it got built up over years and years that maybe it just might come back. And then it did with Matt Smith's character, and it was brought back in a multi-episode arc that I thought actually was very intriguing and handled very well. Credit to Stephen Moffat. I didn't think he could pull it off, but he ended up pulling it off. In walks in Shivers, and he's just like, oh, BT Dubs, off screen, I released the Master and bombed Gallifrey and killed all of them. Like an entire species, I just managed to get the Master to kill. Quite easy, apparently. And now they're really gone this time. And before, when they were supposedly gone, it was kept vague. And you didn't quite know what happened. And later on it was revealed what happened, but it was done so in a way that allowed an opportunity for the Time Lords to come back. Apparently, though, the Master has killed them all. It happened off screen, so maybe he was lying, but they've given us no evidence that he is lying, and it's... So he's clearly just... Yeah, the Time Lords are now all dead and gone. Properly this time. Well, thanks, Chris Chibnall. That's 10 plus years of development on this show just flushed down the fucking drain.
What a crock of shit.
But his visceral vivisection of Doctor Who has not finished. Because, see, who is the Doctor? What is the Doctor? An alien, yes. A Time Lord, yes. But also, they are a intergalactic time-traveling super genius that's a little bit crazy, a little bit dark, and all kinds of wonderful, who likes to save the universe with a bit of string and a kettle, who likes to make friends but knows that eventually they will have to leave them. A being that is so full of light and wonder and pain and despair and wackiness, who travels the world in a big blue box with a sonic screwdriver. In short, it's the most interesting character that's come out of British television in over 50 years. And Chris Chibnall looked at that and said, that's a bit boring. I think this character could use something a bit extra. I know, why don't I make her the basis for all Gallifreyan society? And it turns out that, she was not born just a kid on Gallifrey that wanted to be a Time Lord and then became a Time Lord and then ran away with a blue box when it all got a bit too much for them. No. They're actually the timeless child who gave the Time Lords their ability to perceive, time and regenerate and all that stuff. And actually, the first Doctor, played by William Hartnell, was not actually the first Doctor. The Doctor's been regenerating for several cycles for thousands of years beforehand. Oh, okay, that's cool. Chris Chibnall, the Doctor has never been boring. Not once. Not even in Moffat's most dire moments. Not even in your run has the Doctor ever been boring. But that wasn't enough for you. And I get it, it's hard. It's hard to come up with so many different storylines for a television show that's been running since the early 60s. I get it. I do. It's tough. But did you ever think that maybe, just maybe, you just suck? And actually, I take that back. Chris Chibnall does not suck. I've seen Broadchurch all 3 seasons. Some say there was a drop-off around season 2. I don't personally agree with that. He is a good writer, just not for Doctor Who. Stephen Moffat, for all of its faults, was a good choice for Doctor Who because he was a visionary. It was a vision that I don't particularly agree with all the time, but he was a visionary, as was Russell T Davies. And you need someone with that spark, that ability to really get to grips with a show and a story and a character and just explore it, not struggle to come up with interesting concepts. That's Chris Chibnall. He is other people have described him as a lot of a classic jobbing workaday writer, and that's what he is. He's great at coming up with really gripping, intelligent dramas. That's what he's good at, and that's absolutely fine. That's not what Doctor Who is, though. You gotta have a spark. You gotta have something, like this great imaginative spark that would be out of place on something like Broadchurch. That would make it a bit too wacky, a bit too out there. It needed to be grounded. Chris Chibnall is grounded. Doctor Who is not. And so he's reaching for this spark, and he reached in entirely the wrong direction, and now we're stuck with this whole Gallifrey is dead, despite having just got it back, but Stephen Moffat felt cheated. And the Doctor is now not just the Doctor, but the timeless child, when all she needed to be was the Doctor. The Doctor that I fell in love with when I was 12 years old, despite, I heard about this thing called Doctor Who, and I remember seeing like this picture of this big blue police box when I was a kid, but I didn't really know. And Russell T Davies showed me that, and it was excellent and amazing to the point where I could go back to before Russell T Davies and see the same thing in Peter Davidson and Colin Baker and Tom Baker and Patrick Troughton and all these other amazing people. And now I look at this character and I think, I know this is the Doctor. I know Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor, but she's not just the Doctor anymore. Now she's the timeless child. And I did not fall in love with the timeless child. I fell in love with the Doctor.
There you go. There you go. I mean, I considered the last season, like the 3 strikes Chibnall. Strike 2 and 3 you've already covered. Strike 1 was the complete and utter insensitivity that they had towards Graham's cancer fears, if you recall that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know which episode it was, where he goes to the doctor and he opens up to her and says, I'm terrified of having my cancer come back. And she just stares at him as if he's got 2 heads and says, I don't understand this. This is awkward. I'm just going to go over there and make a joke. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
and don't get me wrong, that sort of line would have worked in relation to another problem, but that's the point where the Doctor should have comforted him, been understanding. Even if she couldn't relate, she would try, and it speaks to the writers. I can only speak for Chris Chibnall, not so much the other writers, but it speaks to the writers just not really knowing what they're doing. What made Doctor Who during Moffat and Davis's run is that the Doctor was this otherworldly alien being, but was also very human and reacted to things sometimes in a very alien way, but other times in a very human way.
I agree, because because she has two hearts. She's from Gallifrey. She is an alien, time traveling, regenerating. Well, I suppose whatever you want to call her. But there's also always that level of humanity to her. That always has bits. She didn't become the master or whatever they're going to become, the Veil Yard. There isn't. They treat her as a god, but she has to.
Veil Yard. Don't get me started.
I won't.
People who aren't familiar with Old Who are going to be like, "What the fuck is the Veil Yard?" That's a can of worms that we can't open right now.
Seal it. But there is always been a level of humanity and understanding, morality to this character across all 14 incarnations. But I don't know. I don't know who wrote that specific scene. I bet it's Chibnall probably. But I don't know. It's just like that was the part where I completely detached myself from this franchise. Like, okay, can we please get a new writer? Give them something to do. Give these characters and these actors some blinking emotion and depth to them.
It's so annoying because she keeps talking about them like these other characters, like they're her fam, and that's cool and quirky and all, but you gotta go deeper than that, because like the whole her traveling in a box that's bigger on the inside, that's just window dressing. That's cool and quirky, but that's not what the show is about, and it's not enough to carry it. You've got to go a step further. And honestly, this new episode, this New Year's Day episode, because they don't do Christmas specials anymore. I don't know. Admittedly, the Christmas specials have garnered some criticism over the years because they haven't been that fantastic, a lot of them, but I still enjoy them to some degrees. But anyway, I thought there were elements of this episode where they did give the characters a bit more growth, but it's rather it's a one-off episode where a lot of the characters leave, so it's kind of a little bit too little, too late.
Unceremoniously, like, what, we're going out, cheerio, see you later.
I wouldn't say unceremoniously, but, I can understand why you'd think that. Oh, God,
Should we get on with it?
I just wish I could point to a problem. I wish I could point to the cancerous boil on this show and said, that needs to be biopsied, cut off, and then the show's good again. But ultimately, the problem runs deeper, because I'm not going to pretend like every episode of the past 2 seasons has been crap, because it just hasn't been. There's been lots of good episodes, and some okay episodes, and some episodes was just like, what the fuck were you thinking? But it just comes down to writing. And other people have talked about this, and it's something I didn't really realize until other people started talking about this. The BBC does not like Doctor Who.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, no. I mean, because it's very popular and they can't get rid of it, but it's like the red-headed stepchild. They just don't know what to do with it. But there's so many people who does. I have a real problem with British television at the moment. I really do, because there are some shows out there that are really interesting and cool, but if it's not a period drama or a really down-to-earth, grounded, gritty police procedural like Broadchurch, or anything like that, or documentary or something like that, people in Britain just, the British people making these at the very least, just don't know what the fuck to do with them. And I look at things like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Good Place, Parks and Rec, and those are all comedies. But there's so many. Winona Earp. There are so many great American TV shows out there right now, and we're just not getting any stuff like that over here. At least not in the comedy department. I occasionally will dip into like, okay, let's try this British comedy series, and it's just like, oh, everyone's really awkward and socially, and because they're trying to recreate The Office.
Yeah,
fucking
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the BBC had to team up with HBO to do the Dark Materials show, which is quite good.
Oh yeah.
You know, they need to get...
Which I've been afraid of watching because I want to watch it, but it's just like, is it good?
Yes, it's very good.
Okay, well, I'll give it a try. But that's the thing. Yeah, if they have to team with HBO, who consistently make good television shows...
Well, you know, the last 2 seasons...
We don't blame HBO for the abomination that was Season 8 of Game of Thrones. Okay, that's not their fault. It's all D&D.
Yeah, HBO provided the budget for his Dark Materials, because BBC would have just skipped all of it.
And in fairness, yeah, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 can't provide as big a budgets as American TV shows. But if you have a good enough idea and a good enough cast and good enough writers, true visionaries, that doesn't really matter.
Exactly. Just look at the past 50 years of Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly. The fucking old school Doctor Who had a budget of a hand sandwich and 2 tins of tomato soup. That was it. I mean, for God's sake, if you look at some of the old effects, it's appalling. But it still had a massive fan base because it connected with cat people. And my dad used to watch it. He used to hide behind the sofa when he was watching it. And my dad's not a very media-savvy person, but you know what? He loved it. And it doesn't... Budgets are great, but they don't matter if you know what you're doing. And the people making these shows just don't really know what they're doing. And honestly, I think Revolution of the Daleks, this latest New Year's Day special, encapsulates everything that is good and bad about the Chibnall era of Doctor Who. And unfortunately, the bad outweighs the good. So, let's dive right fucking into it. I'm scared of you.
Let's exterminate this thing.
Oh, guys. Well, we pick up where the previous New Year's Day special left off. Can you fucking remember the plot of that? Because I can't. Like, there was a Dalek that was taking over people's bodies.
That's about it. That's about all I remember.
That was about it. They really didn't add much.
Dalek.
But it was a reconnaissance Dalek that came to Earth to scout it out, and it ended up being defeated, leaving aside just a burnt-out husk of the robotic body that the Daleks live in. And it's been taken by not Unit, because apparently Unit is gone as well.
Oh yeah, they mentioned that, didn't they? They're so stupid.
Oh yeah, it's just Unit, apparently. Unit is basically like the BPRD, but for aliens in Britain.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it's like a multinational agency or not, but it's mainly centered in Britain.
They had the American branch in Stolen Earth.
Yeah, and it's been a constant presence in Doctor Who. The Doctor used to work for Unit as a scientific advisor. It was present in the Russell T Davies era and the Moffat era, where we even got introduced to the Brigadier's daughter, who was a very interesting character. And then in Chibnall's era, it's gone. It's followed up. I guess, despite the fact that Earth is routinely invaded by aliens, the government just decided, you know what, fuck it, it's austerity, we'll cut your budget too.
Yeah. What how Torchwood's dealing with it.
Oh, don't even get me started on Torchwood. Oh, that's another can of worms. It was so fun, but so stupid, and then it just ended weirdly. Focus. So it's now the Dalek's robot body is now being picked up by random government agents, and that's been put in. Okay, so this is possibly the most dangerous, most experimental, most valuable piece of alien technology that the British government has ever got its hand on. And what do? They stick it in a lorry and put one guy in charge of driving it. There are no armed guards. There is no surveillance, no extra security. No, just a guy in a lorry. A fucking guy in a lorry. The same person you would get to. It's basically just like the equivalent of hiring a man with a van when you're moving house. You don't want to do anything? Like an extra padlock? No? Just this one guy? Okay, well, fine. Oh, the guy's gone into a lay-by. Oh, he's going to order some tea from like a little food truck type thing. and he drinks the tea. It was poisoned of some sort. And then the lady who was serving him the tea then dumps his body in the back of the lorry and drives off with it. Ooh, okay, cool. Here's my question. What the fuck happened to him? Because they build up this character by this other character earlier saying, "How's your mum?" And he's like, "Okay, yeah, still the same." And then we see a picture of him with his mum in the lorry, and then he gets poisoned and dumped in the back of the van. I thought to myself, okay, so they're subverting expectations. They're making this character seem like, he's an actual real character, and then it turns out he's just disposable. Okay, fine. Here's my question, though. What happened to it?
It's left them there.
No, because here's seriously, okay, so you want to subvert expectation by showing this character has a full life and has family, and then that's the thing. See, is he dead or not? Because it looks like he might be dead, but also might be alive.
His eyes are open,
and when it turns out what happens with the Dalek,
his eyes were open in the back of the truck when they tossed him in, so I assume he's dead.
Maybe, I don't know. It's really distracting. And when you find out who hijacked this Dalek, it makes even less sense. Because it turns out that it's been hijacked by this businessman, Jack Robertson, played by Chris North of Sex and the City and Law and Order fame. And two shows that I never thought would be connected to fucking Doctor Who, but here we are. Oh, God. Can you just imagine Jodie Whittaker with the woman from Sex and the City? Oh, that might make the show bearable to watch. Anyway, so he was in the show previously in an episode called Arachnids in the UK, which I thought was particularly bad. But the character was kind of interesting because he was like this big American businessman who was clearly like insensitive and doesn't care about people. But maybe he also had a slight edge of humanity to him, possibly, but was mainly just, not a very nice guy who just happens to survive. It was not a very good character whose only saving grace was the fact that Chris Noth was clearly having a lot of fun playing him. That was it. So he turns up again, Jack Robertson, and now he's in cahoots with this low-ranking member of Parliament, Jo Patterson, played by British actor Harriet Walter. And it turns out she tipped him off to the fact that this Dalek robot body was being transported. I guess he took that to, okay, kill the driver, gotcha. And then he takes the robot body and he turns it, with the help of this character Leo, played by Nathan Stewart Jarrett, who I think was in Misfits, into a quote-unquote security defense drone with no organic parts. It's all like robotic, that's used for riot suppression. It gets better. He demonstrates this to that member of Parliament by staging a riot between like police and SWAT gear and protesters who are clearly very agitated. They're all actors, but still. And then he has the Dalek come in and suppress the fake riot by blasting them with a water cannon. And I'm just sitting here thinking, 2020 and indeed 2019 was years in which many protests took place for various reasons, most notably Black Lives Matter. And this show, about an alien with two hearts who whizzes around the galaxy and time travels in a blue police box from the 1960s with a quirky assortment of side characters, is using imagery that looks very similar to all the horrible riots that have been, where people have been brutalized by police in its imagery. And I'm just thinking that Chris Chibnall must have looked at that fucking Kylie Jenner Pepsi advert and thought, I can do worse. It is I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it. Maybe the people who wrote this were fucking out of touch, insensitive assholes who don't know what they're doing.
Or maybe they were trying to think they were being clever about it by using a Dalek as a police brutality machine.
It's so uncomfortable to watch. And what makes it kind of worse is Leo, the guy who basically designed it, is played by a black man, Nathan Stewart Jarrett. And no one makes any references to Black Lives Matter, or anything like that, or anything topical. It's just a riot where the protesters, or the riots, I say rioters, it's really... They say they're protesters, but they're behaving like rioters that are clearly out of control and need to be stopped. I realize that the people doing this are the bad guys. Like, the Member of Parliament and Jack Robertson are definitely 100% the bad guys in this. But it's just so uncomfortable.
On the nose.
Yeah, there's no subtlety about it. And even if there was, I might honestly make it worse. I don't know. It's just... It feels wrong. It feels wrong in my tummy.
The fact that Jack Robson's meant to be a Trump parody, you have a Dalek as the representation of police brutality. Are they trying to give us a message, or are they just trying to be about as subtle as an exploding comet?
That's the thing. See, I don't think they are trying to send a message. I don't think they're trying to be on the nose. I just think they're out of touch. This is just my interpretation. I don't think this came across as them, the people who made Doctor Who, coming out against Black Lives Matter or protesters or anything like that. I think it's just them casually using that sort of imagery to, sell their story. Like, when Pepsi did that horrible advert featuring how the protest was quelled by the inclusion of Pepsi. Oh, thank God, a disgusting carbonated beverage has saved the day. Like, that didn't smack to me as them coming out against Black Lives Matter or anything like that. It smacked of them just being really out of touch, insensitive, and just not understanding what they were doing. It smacked more of ignorance than malice. And that's how it comes across here, which, honestly though, doesn't make it any easier to watch. I don't think that Chris Chibnall hates Black Lives Matter. I just think that either he was just so out of touch that he didn't think about using, protest imagery in this day and age, or he did see it, did decide to use it, and just thought, it'll be fine. Either way, it's not great. And considering the fact that the Dalek is, at least over here in the UK, a symbol of the ultimate form of genocidal, xenophobic hate, rage, and evilness, and it just feels wrong. I've talked about it enough anyway. And so Joe Patterson, this Member of Parliament, is just like, this is excellent. This is really, really cool. And we're going to roll this out nationwide. I'm going to give you all the money you want. And it's going to look really good for me. I will 100% not regret this. And that all takes place, however, in 2019. About a year later, we pick up after the events of the last episode, where a bunch of stuff happened that I didn't like, and the Doctor ended up trapped in space prison. It happens, Meanwhile, in a spare TARDIS that they just had lying around that's now disguised as a house thanks to the Chameleon Circuit, I'm not going to explain everything to you, capers. Look it up on a wiki. Graham and Ryan have been pretty much getting on with their lives. Meanwhile, Yaz is obsessed with finding out how to find the Doctor again. She's been living in this spare TARDIS. She's been going a bit crazy. She's got like a wall of, I guess, evidence trying to find a way to make the TARDIS work and get back to the Doctor. And I was just like, please tell me they're going to focus on her character more in this episode, because when they do focus on her character, it is very interesting. And they do kind of do that, in fairness. Outside of the Doctor, she's the one that gets the most focus in this episode, and that is was about to say it's one of its saving graces, but you can't save this. It's one of the better aspects about him.
Keep forgetting that she's a cop.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you say she's a cop. Honestly, it gets referenced so few times. It never really comes into play in a character. It's only referenced like once or twice. So
yeah,
she might as well not be.
With Gwen, at least it kind of like she brought that police investigation sense of thinking into Torchwood. But with Yaz, it's kind of like, oh yeah, she's a police officer. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget that important part of her. And Graham and Ryan are obviously very concerned about her, but then Graham shows her leaked footage, which I can't believe no one noticed that someone had an iPhone out and was recording this footage of that mock protest we mentioned earlier, and they realized, oh shit, Daleks, we gotta sort this out. Who's in charge of this? Robertson? Oh, not that guy. We hate that guy. Let's go and sort this out. And this brings me to a point that really annoys me, and it's not necessarily Chris Chibnall's fault, but it is a problem in modern day Doctor Who. So, several years ago in Doctor Who, there was in the climax of the second season of New Who, the Daleks came out of Canary Wharf, which is this place in London, and started killing people. And it was this big, huge thing. Daleks coming out of the sky and killing a bunch of people. But yet no one nowadays seems to fucking recognize
and the fact
them.
that they also, kidnapped the whole planet.
Oh yeah, even better than that. They kidnapped the whole planet, held it in this other space, and just basically invaded all of Earth. All of Earth. Like, held the planet hostage. No one did not know that there were Daleks around killing people.
Apart from Amy, because of the whole time crack in the wall thingy.
Except for her. But now, everyone acts like Daleks, this is complete unknown. Were you on holiday from Earth when the Daleks invaded the entire planet?
It's like everyone kind of forgot who Al-Qaeda was, or who ISIS was. Like, it's a Dalek!
Yeah, it's just like, there's this guys walking down the street. They're wearing jackboots and really strange military uniforms with a little, like, it looks like a bunch of legs in a white circle surrounded by a red armband. That seems evocative of something. I wonder what it could be. Oh my god, but here's the thing. I wouldn't mind so much, except for the fact that this person, this Joe Patterson person, it turns out that she's now manipulated away to become a prime minister and is planning to roll out these Dalek security drone creation things as part of her way of protecting the nation and basically replacing the police. And no one mentions, hey, aren't those things that, like, took the Earth hostage and, like, killed a bunch of us? It's like, hey, we're unveiling the new police uniforms. Oh, just ignore the fact that they look like the stormtroopers from Star Wars. They're just like the new police uniforms, you know? Oh my god, it's so, like, it's not Chris Chibnall's fault. This has been going on for a little while now. People just not recognizing characters and creatures that they clearly should recognize.
It's ridiculous.
But that doesn't make it any less annoying for us, the audience.
No, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So, the fam, as they're known, Graham, Ryan, and Yaz, go to confront Jack Robertson, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Shut up, it's fine. Also, by the way, security, and then they're led away at gunpoint by security. And I'm just sitting here wondering, what was their plan? Like, well, they're planning to confront this massively powerful, influential, millionaire businessman and didn't expect him to have any sort of backup. And this is the problem, the biggest problem I have with this episode. It makes characters that were previously quite smart very stupid.
And again, Yaz is a cop. Why don't she just correct his ass?
It's really, really weird. Because here's the thing. When you make characters that should know better make terribly stupid decisions, it's less of an insult against their intelligence and more of an insult against our intelligence, the audience intelligence. We're expected to believe that these characters would not have a single modicum of sense that they previously had and just make these stupid decisions and just accept that. Well, no, Chris Chibnall, we don't accept that because we're not fucking stupid. But you clearly think we are because you think that this is a perfectly reasonable course of action. I try not to get personally offended by stuff like this, but I can't help it sometimes.
Sometimes.
Like I might disagree with character motivations and plotting and writing, but I really take exception when it's so blatantly stupid that it's insulting people's intelligence. I really don't like that.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Basically, yes. And, okay, and then Robertson goes into his tech company and is talking to this guy, Leo, that we mentioned earlier, saying like, hey, so we're going to get rolled out nationwide, but I want to say you've been doing a great job, Leo. It's been awesome, revolutionizing the world and making lots of money with you. And Leo's like, yeah, hey, so I found like these trace minute organic particles inside the Dalek shell thing that we recovered earlier. That's the basis for all of our drones. And so BT Dubs, in like the year since we've been working on this, whilst I've been, building and designing these drones, I also took the time to just, in my spare time, just by myself, clone it. I'm sorry, you fucking what? Okay, so this... And he shows Robertson the clone of the Dalek, and Robertson is just like, what the fuck? No, burn it. Why would you do this? No, stupid. Also, I'm not going to watch you incinerate that monstrosity, nor am I going to make sure that anyone else does it. I'm literally just going to assume that you're going to go down to the basement where there is a furnace for some reason, and because, that's what every single building has. And I'm just going to assume that you did it. And even though you clearly went behind my back and did this without telling anyone, and I'm sure everything will turn out fine, because I am quite stupid all of a sudden. And this brings up several questions. Number one, how did Leo clone a Dalek? Like, I understand that we're working on sci-fi logic here. I'm not suggesting that the, existence of cloning is just too ridiculous for me, but... This is a guy living in 2020, and I know we can clone things in 2020, like we do have that ability, but it's a long, exhaustive process that requires, a lab, access to all sorts of kinds of technology, and, putting certain, like, zygotes and stuff inside of other zygotes and putting it inside, like, look up like, the creation of Dolly the sheep, that's how you do it. So how did he do it? Did he just invent cloning technology all of a sudden? Is he from Star Wars? Can he do that? Why did you do that? How did he have the time to do that? I thought he was working full-time on creating these Dalek things. And
I don't even know what it looked like.
Yeah. Also, why would he do that? Okay, so you find trace organic material of a unrecognizable organism inside the thing. Okay, so your first instinct is to clone that son of a bitch. Why is that your first reaction? Number 3, how did no one notice? How did no one notice that you were cloning something? That is something that tends to attract attention. Number 4, why didn't you tell him? Why didn't you tell Robertson that you were cloning them? Like, hey boss, I found these trace organic particles inside this robot thing that we're building. Can I clone it? What the fuck? No. Would be how it usually goes. And maybe then he did it behind his back. And but the biggest question I have is, why? Why did you do this? What was your fucking motivation?
He wanted a Neopet.
That's as good an explanation as any, because the show doesn't give us an explanation. Like, I guess you could argue that he was just really intensely curious, but the show doesn't give you any reason for his curiosity. He doesn't present him as like this mad scientific genius who explores all kinds of weird scientific avenues without any sort of notion of ethics, purely for the sake of discovery. No, he just presented him as kind of an awkward, tech-savvy guy who apparently has kids, as mentioned in an offhand comment, and that's it. The character doesn't get a lot of motivation or growth as a character, and he's just sort of there to create the Dalek bodies and then clone the Dalek. And this is one of the big problems I have with this episode, is that stuff just happens because the plot needs to happen.
It's like literally when they were doing the furnace, he's like, he's gonna open the box and take the thing out. He's gonna open the box, let the thing out, and as soon as he did it, I went, what a surprise!
The Dalek takes over his body.
Yeah,
Daleks can do that now, and yeah, it's so blatant and so on the nose, and it's not. It's forced. It's contrived. And he also mentions that he hooked up the Dalek to this neural net that they have to control all the Dalek robot drones. And just like, why would you do that? What possessed you to, like, okay, you cloned a creature. Okay, I'm going to hook it up into this giant AI network that we also built. Okay, sure, fine. Why?
Or just give him codes to nuke the bombs while you're at it.
Why? Why not? Like you mentioned Neopets. Okay, I've got a Neopet. Cool. I'm going to tap that into NORAD's computer system. Why the fuck not?
NORAD pet.
NORAD pet. Okay, sure. I'm fine with that happening. I am fine with that happening. But you gotta help us understand why. It's called character motivation. It's kind of important. People don't just do stuff for no reason. Well, they do in real life, but it's not naturalistic, is all I'm saying. I don't have to agree with a decision, but I have to be able to emphasize with a character and understand their motivations. It's kind of a prerequisite of character development, because otherwise, unless you're doing something that's just like lol so random, like a fucking cartoon or something, it makes no goddamn sense. It doesn't help the fact that we know almost nothing about this guy. If we knew about a bit more, he's only turned up in one scene before this when they were demonstrating the Dalek drone. So, what's the fucking point of anything? I'm sorry, it's so frustrating. So that happens. Meanwhile, the Doctor has been stuck in space jail, right next to the Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm assuming. And we get a bunch of like references to previous Doctor Who characters, like, ooh, there's a weeping angel that's locked up there. Sure. And like one of the newer creatures there, and an Ood and a Sycorax. For some reason, it's so clear that they just didn't want to come up with any new creature effects, so they just reused the old ones.
Why is there a random member of the Silence in a jumpsuit?
I don't know. It's best not to think about it. I've already
the graveyard
about
of
it.
Storytelling. Hey.
And the Doctor's feeling very depressed. She's clearly been there for a long time, as judged by the... I can't believe I'm going to say this. The, like, scratches on the cell walls to mark the passage of time. Was a poster of Rita Hayworth, 2 on the nose for your Chris Chibnall. God. And... also, she tells herself Harry Potter at night to keep herself entertained. It's like, I mentioned before on the show that if you like Harry Potter and still want to engage with it, that's fine. But again, considering the context that Harry Potter is now in, thank you, J.K. Rowling. You know what story you couldn't do is just do The Hobbit. You couldn't just do the fucking Hobbit. Who doesn't love The Hobbit? There's an audiobook version out there read by Andy Serkis. It's amazing.
Ooh. Ew.
Yeah, anyway, he doesn't do the Gollum voice the whole way through. He's a multi-talented actor. He's probably the best actor working right now, if I'm perfectly honest. Anyway, but then, suddenly, she's confronted in the jail by, everyone's omnisexual time agent, Captain Jack Harkness.
Woo!
However, there is a problem here, because he's clearly just here for, again, more plot convenience and fan service.
And ratings.
Yeah, well, that's all it is. That's all it is, because... So they brought him back in a previous episode, just sort of randomly. And I was like, oh, cool, it's Captain Jack. Oh, he's gone. Oh well, never mind. And it's clear that the marginal backlash the previous 2 seasons have had has gotten back to the writers' room. So just like, oh shit, what do people like about Doctor Who? Well, they really like this one character, Captain Jack. Okay, we'll bring him in then. Does he really fit into the story? Who cares? And I'm just thinking, holy shit, that's the same logic they used in Rise of Skywalker with Palpatine.
Did they even use logic in that one?
Yes, because that's the only logic that fucking marketers and studio executives can operate on. Okay, we want this thing to make money. Okay, well, shall we write really intriguing characters and storylines? No, let's come up with a huge list of things that we know people like, buzzwords, things that we focus tested. And what do people like about Star Wars? Oh, well, a lot of people online, like Tumblr and Reddit and stuff, are saying how much they love the original prequels. Okay, how can we call back to the original prequels? Well, they really like Palpatine. Okay, we'll include Palpatine. But that seems like it's looking backwards rather than taking the series forward. Who cares? It's going to make us money. You think I'm exaggerating, Capers? That's how they operate. And I understand why brand recognition and all. But if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't work, if it comes out of nowhere and was not planned from the get-go, it's just retroactive storytelling, which annoys people and is frustrating and distracting and insulting to the audience's intelligence. It's the same mindset. And they need to move past it, because everything that people like right now does not ascribe to that kind of mindset. It really doesn't. People are moving beyond that sort of thing. And yeah, you might make money out of it, but long term, you're just going to piss people off and they're going to be less likely to come back to it. And they're going to skip you and they go to things that they did like that. Okay, I'm not going to talk about Star Wars forever, but I'm just going to say this. People liked the prequels because it was a pure creative vision. They weren't good movies, but they were pure creative vision. One guy said, I have a bunch of movies in my head that I want to put on the page and then put on the screen. And that's what I like. And a lot of other people didn't like that. I didn't like it. But it was creatively pure. These new movies, well, at least the sequel trilogy, were not creatively pure. They were just cobbled together with stuff that the people making them thought people already liked. They were not creatively pure. It was too many cooks in the kitchen, and that's why they failed. And honestly, what you need is a respectable middle ground between, yes, a creatively pure vision, but one that doesn't just come from one person. The best stuff comes from a collaborative experience that's made of like, okay, let's tell a really intriguing story that we would like, but other people would like as well, not based on stuff they already like, but what they think they might like going forward. What's next? And unfortunately, when you include a character like Captain Jack in this way, it's not looking forward, it's just looking back, because Captain Jack does stuff in this movie, but it's just stuff. He does stuff. Let me tell you what he does. He plants a bunch of bombs, provides a little bit of exposition, helps another character come to realization about herself, and provides a plot-convenient way of breaking the Doctor out of prison. That's it. Because here's the thing, Captain Jack is a really interesting character. Like I mentioned, omnisexual, time-traveling, time agent, previous companion of the Doctor, who is also immortal. But the worst kind of immortal. He's as vulnerable as anyone else. He can be killed, but he always comes back, like being dragged over broken glass. And he's stuck like that. A rift in time. A fixed point that even as the Doctor can't really stomach. Because as a Time Lord, the Doctor looks at someone like Captain Jack and just says, "You're wrong, Jack. You're not meant to be." And he's like, "I know, it sucks. Can you fix me?" No, you're stuck on that. It's a weird, torturous existence that would break a lesser person. But Jack has an incredible fortitude of character that allows him to rise above it, but he still feels all the pain. And none of that is represented in this episode.
Where is it?
It's not here. It's gone. And granted, he's only in it for this one episode. He's not going back to being a recurring character. Yeah. So there's not a lot you can do with. But at this point, Jack has been around for presumably, I would like to say like 1,000 years or so. Like he's said he waited 19 years to get into the prison to help rescue the Doctor. So he's clearly gotten used to long-term thinking. And we've seen him like travel amongst the galaxy for ages. And the last time we actually saw him before Doctor Who was him returning to Earth when everyone on Earth stopped dying for a couple of weeks. And then it ended with him finding that another person had become immortal like him, and then that ended on a cliffhanger, and that never gets mentioned again. And in fairness, I'd rather not them talk about that fucking ending to Torture because it was kind of crap and way too long. But there's so much you could do with that character. Like, hey, Jack, how have you been? What have you been up to? How are you doing right now? Especially as we know that eventually Jack is going to turn into the face of Bo. This giant head that's wise and serene and textbookly enigmatic. But we don't get any build up to that. We don't get to understand it. I thought, like, there's Captain Jack here and there's Daleks. Maybe his physiology will fuse with Dalek physiology, turning him into the face of Bo. Nope, that doesn't happen. It's just Captain Jack's just there because, like, hey kids, remember Captain Jack? Well, here he is again doing his Captain Jack stuff. He makes a couple of wise cracks and provides a bit of exposition, and he's got like the coat and everything, and that's it. That's it. Oh, hey, remember the first episode he turned up where he had that big gun that made holes in walls? He's got that now. It's the most incompetent, surface level brand recognition you could wish on a character, not that you would ever want to.
He also made the callback, the fact that he should have the thing clenched up his to smuggle it in.
Yeah, half of his dialogue is actually callbacks. Literally, he and the Doctor, when they first meet, repeat lines that he's had before in the past. Like, have you had a bit of work done? You can talk. They literally said that in, like, when David Tennant was Doctor Who. Literally, word for word, they already said that. And it's just like, that's, like, who? No, why? No, why? And it speaks to the writers having a lack of faith in the episode, in the story. They don't think it's interesting enough for us to pay attention to, so they cram this character in there that fits fine, but only because there's a big, convenient hole for him to fit into, with very limited functionality in regards of him working in the episode. It's so distracting, and not in a good way. What is the point of him being there? You could fill his character with any other character from past Doctor Who with even remotely the same skill set. Like, you put Mickey Smith in there. You could put Madame Vastra in there. Did anyone else miss her?
Yeah,
and Jenny
I do.
And the Potato Man?
We missed
like,
Strax.
Strax. Like, they were weird at first. I didn't really like them at first, but then they grew on me. They were clever and funny and sweet, and honestly seemed like they could have had their own show. Now we just don't see them anymore. And that's okay. That's fine, because characters come and go from Doctor Who. That's absolutely fine. But when your character, your brand new recurring character, could be replaced by almost any other recurring character, it begs the question, what is the fucking point?
Et voila.
So, Captain Jack breaks the Doctor out of prison, suspiciously easily, by the way.
Yeah.
And they end up, they go back to the present day, and she's like, hey fam, I'm back. And Yaz is not a happy bunny, just like, you left us for 10 months. We thought you were dead.
Yes, tension.
And actually, this moment is very good. The Doctor's very apologetic, and Yaz is like, because like Ryan and Graham have kind of moved on a bit, and Yaz has been stuck thinking about the Doctor the whole time, and now she strolls back into her life like nothing happened. The emotions of the moment are actually done quite well.
It's like, we waited for you for so long.
Although I will admit, Amy Pond waited for him for like 2 years.
Even longer.
No, even longer. Yeah, so it's not the longest, but you know, I don't want to take away from it. It's still interesting.
Well, Rory wins the points for the longest waiting time.
Rory is the guy who waited literally thousands of years for stuff. The man is the patience of a saint, and yet they still got divorced. Huh. Anyway, so, and this is what I want to talk about Yaz. Yaz, in the previous 2 seasons, like I mentioned before, her character just sort of fades into the background unless the episode directly focuses on her. She doesn't get any interesting lines. She doesn't really have anything interesting to do. She's just kind of there. But when they do focus on her, it's very interesting. Although we'll see that episode where they went to India and they talked about partition was one of the worst episodes in the entire show's run. Not so much from a plot standpoint, but from a character and acting standpoint. I'm serious. The acting in the past 2 seasons has fallen at a very noticeable rate.
What were your thoughts on the Rosa Parks episode?
I thought it could have been better, but I still thought it was very good. I thought the way they handled it was sensitive enough. I thought the antagonist character they had there was fucking awful, and not in like, ooh, I love to hate him kind of way. Like, no, this is a very poorly written character. It's a very poor representation of racism and white supremacy. It's sort of hung the idea that the whole civil rights movement solely rested on Rosa Parks. And yes, it was a massive turning point, and she was an incredibly influential and amazing person. But I always thought that if Rosa Parks hadn't done what she did, someone else eventually would have. It reminded me, there's this episode of now the old show Charmed, where they go back in time or something happens where they accidentally stop Lady Godiva from riding through the streets naked. And that apparently means that everyone's now living like it's The Handmaid's Tale and women have no rights. And I was sitting here thinking, no, show, no, that's not how that works at all. That's a horrible representation of women's rights, and claiming that Rosa Parks is like, you know what would have been, do you know what would have been very wrong but very interesting is if in this episode, the Rosa Parks episode, the bad guy wins and stops Rosa Parks from refusing to give up her seat. And then he's like, haha, and now black people will be subservient to the white people forever. But then it turns out, no, that doesn't happen because someone else rises up and the civil rights movement still happens. Because, like, you can't stop that kind of thing. You can't stop people from fighting against injustice just by taking away one person. You just can't. And obviously that would have been terrible from a, looking at his history perspective, but it would have been very interesting in terms of a take on the civil rights movement. I'm not saying that's what they should have done. That's just like headcanon, blue sky thinking, spitballing ideas. And so the episode was not bad. This is one of the episodes where I thought Tosin Cole's performance was actually really good. It was kind of forced that it turned out that his mum was, quote unquote, a fan of those American civil rights leaders. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it was never discussed beforehand. So, just kind of came out of nowhere. And it was interesting. I think it could have been a lot worse, but it could have been a bit better. But it was good enough for me, but that's just me. And I always get worried when Doctor Who or any show like this takes on a very serious subject like this, because sometimes it works very well. Like in the Russell T Davies and even Stephen Moffat era, they explored subject like that really interestingly, like the First World War and
Van
Gogh, and talking about depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder and all these other sorts of things that they handled with an amazing amount of warmth, humanity, and sensitivity. And I don't think the Rosa Parks episode quite reached that level, but it came close enough for me, just for me. But honestly, that was a high point of the season that they never really got back to. Anyway. What were we fucking talking about? Yaz. But I thought when they focus on her, she was actually a very interesting character. And they do focus on her a lot in this because the they all hook up together, the fam, the Doctor, and Captain Jack, and they all split up. Okay, so we got this Robertson facility in Osaka, Japan. We've got to check that out. And we've also got to confront Robinson. So the Doctor, Graham, and Ryan go to confront Robinson, and Jack and Yaz go to Japan.
Yeah, Japan.
And you might think, oh, it'd be really cool to see them exploring Japan. Like, it's literally just a side alley in Japan. Just like, you could have said it fucking anywhere in the world, and it wouldn't matter.
Not one Japanese person in sight.
No, yeah, it's pretty deserted.
Japan. Because it's in New York. When they go to New York, they actually filmed in New York, and they had, oh, we're in New York. This is New York. Japan. No, where's Tokyo Tower? Where's the Rainbow Bridge? Nope. Where's the Shinjuku Towers? Nope. It's just a random back alley in Japan.
Yeah, but then Yaz and Jack talk about the Doctor and how she leaves them or they leave her and stuff, and it's a very interesting conversation, but it's entirely one-sided in terms of who's giving who the pep talk. It's entirely Jack trying to give character development to Yaz. And that's not terrible, but what it should be is, it should have been equal. It should have been like, yeah, he's giving her a pep talk, he's explaining to her about who the Doctor really is and the relationship she could possibly hope to have with her. But it's also should have been like the Doctor, Captain Jack, revealing that he's come to, I don't know, some sort of philosophical revelation about the Doctor and his own existence.
Yeah, because I felt because he had Torchwood, he had a new family, he kind of moved away from, he moved beyond needing to cling to the Doctor when he had Gwen and
because everyone died.
Gwen and her husband.
I had Chico, oh, she died. Oh, I had Owen, oh, he died. Well, I've got Yanto, my boyfriend Yanto, oh, he died. Well, I've got my grandson. Oh, he died.
And we've got Reese, I guess.
Reese is fine. Reese will always be fine. Love Reese.
Because they do mention that Gwen has a son now, so I guess that she has two kids. So Jack could have become her the godfather or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I've also got Mekki Phifer's character. Oh, wait, forget about him.
Oh yeah. Well, you probably got blown up.
Oh, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, and it's just, is this the only reason why you brought this character in? To build up another character? Because then you might as well just have a cardboard cutout with a voice box saying, you are your own person. The Doctor will eventually leave you. You need to self-actualize.
Yeah, let's go. What is with one thing I kind of noticed is that almost every single Doctor Who companion, with a couple of exceptions, have all got really super emotionally clingy to the Doctor.
Yeah.
It's like, look at it, Rose got clingy, Martha got clingy, Sarah Jane got super clingy, Jo got clingy.
I don't think Sarah Jane got super clingy. Like, she had a close attachment to the Doctor, but she was able to, like, if you go back and watch the Doctor's, the Fourth Doctor's departure from Sarah Jane, he gets called back to Gallifrey and he's got to leave her behind. And it's a really sweet scene that Elizabeth Sladen, rest in peace, did a magnificent job of, and she was like, she accepted it and she was sad about it. She was like, don't forget me. And the Doctor's like, oh, Sarah, don't forget about me. And it's really sweet, and their reunion in New Who is really great, and he does offer, like, hey, you want to come with me? And she's like, no, I've got a life here, and I'm not saying that I won't forget you, or I've moved on or anything, but, like, I'm happy where I am. And
why can't Jack be like that?
Yeah, because, like, hundreds of thousands of years of living, what does that do to a human mind? We saw what it did to a character like Ashilda, played by Maisie Williams. Admittedly, she had different sort of way of going about it, because, like, she had, like, memory problems. She sort of kept on forgetting her own past, so she became, like, this... I don't know how best to describe it. It was a really fascinating character, to be honest. A really fascinating way of looking at things.
She became very apathetic, I believe.
Yes, but also I still found that kind of interesting. But the Jack is still, like, I don't want Jack to stop being the wisecracking, pansexual, hypersexual, lovable rogue that he is. But I also want to see how he has changed. And since the last time we saw him, he hasn't changed. If anything, he gets less character development. Stuff gets taken away from him. He just gets callbacks, like he's fought the Daleks a couple of times, and that's all that gets mentioned. Oh yeah, the Daleks killed me once. Like, you never forget your first.
Oh yeah, and the very, very unsubtle. Well, we had a friend called Rose, and here's her whole backstory. It's like, okay, we get it. Rose has been gone for years. We know, very sad. Is there a reaction from the Doctor? No, of course there's not. Let's move on.
Yeah, we get more reaction from the companions, like, what? Parallel dimension? What's that about? And it's played for laughs. It's...
Yeah. Tragedy! It's a tragedy!
It is. It's a great tragedy. You look online and you see reactions of people watching that for the first time. People fucking cried. I cried.
Yeah, I mean, even when they've brought her up again in the past, you've seen Matt Smith and David Tennant and Peter Capaldi react with some glimpse of sadness. But what's Jodie Whittaker doing? She's running around doing Doctor things, staring at the machine off the corner.
Yeah, and
let's get.
And that's not Jodie Whittaker's fault. I want to point out this is entirely the writing and directing. Like,
indeed, exactly.
Anyway, so they go to Osaka and they do that. Meanwhile, Graham Ryan and the Doctor go to confront Robertson, put him in the TARDIS, and admittedly it was kind of funny to see him struggle to come to grips with the fact that he was big on the inside, and none of them decide to explain it to him. Just like, let him get frustrated. Like, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then they eventually go to Osaka as well, and they realize, oh my god, they're cloning Daleks here. Oh no. And then it turns into Alien for a hot minute.
Yeah, they'll jump on Jack and Yes's face, like, oh, here's the Alien reference.
And he's easily managed to get them off him, and
with the square gun,
and they get on Yaz. He's easily able to dispatch them. It's just, oh god, the plot armor is thick on some of these people. And then, like I said, the Doctor turns up with the others, and then Leo turns up being controlled by the reconnaissance clone Dalek thing, because apparently Daleks can have their consciousness in their cells, because sci-fi. And
how convenient.
And the Doctor, oh god, in what was possibly the worst bit of writing in the entire episode, possibly the whole season, just purely from a dialogue standpoint, the Doctor says, all right, tell me your whole plan. And then the Dalek immediately proceeds to tell her his whole plan.
Who was it? Was it Matt Smith who did that? It's like, tell me the whole plan. Like that's gonna work.
And yeah, and it didn't work though. It was played for laughs. It was like a tongue in cheek. Here they say it sincerely. Matt Smith was just like, tell me the whole plan, and they're like, no, crap, I thought that would work. Anyway, back to running. Here, he just unironically says, tell me the whole plan, and then the Dalek says, okay, when I was a child. No! For fuck's sake, could you try just a little bit harder, please? Just a modicum of effort.
No, it keeps them going, because then they decide to recycle the whole mutant human Dalek clone thingy that they've already done twice before.
Oh god, yeah. So turns out the Dalek, once Leo stupidly hooked it up to this neural net thing, was able to somehow, like remotely, order human workers to build this lab in Osaka, despite the fact that Jack Robertson had no idea this was happening. Like, literally, like he mentioned earlier, how were you able to hide the purchase orders? And then one of the other characters was just like, is that really what you're focusing on? And I was like, no, that's a good question, actually. How was the Dalek able to hide this from anyone? Like, in Japan, no one noticed it. No one brought it up. No one, like, just imagine the Dalek, like, over the phone, desperately trying to negotiating zoning permits.
In Japanese.
Do I have planning permission? Yes. Reference number. I will find it. Oh, God, I hate human bureaucracy.
Moshi.
It's just so funny when you think about it for more than a second. And I hate that when a show or a movie doesn't invite you to think about it. just demands that you switch your brain off. And I really hate when people excuse that. Just like, no, I have a brain, I'm gonna fucking use it. And if you don't want me to use it, then you're insulting my intelligence. Again, it just insults my intelligence. But anyway, it explains that it built them, and then once its purpose was done, it had the humans killed, liquidized, and fed into the Dalek cloning tanks. And I'm just like, okay, I can understand. I could suspend my disbelief for a fraction of a second and assume that you were able to remotely order people to build this facility and build all the equipment you need. I could even somehow stretch the imagination just enough that I could believe that no one was able to figure this out. But how did you, a Dalek that was attached to a neural net but was very much trapped in a tank built by Leo for a year, how were you able to get people killed remotely and liquidized? How was it the Daleks that were present there? Did they manage to do it? How if they didn't have like the human liquidized nutrients feeding them, how did you manage to do that? How did you just send an email to them? Okay, could you just feed yourselves into this meat grinder for me, please? And the human workers were just like, okay. It just beggars belief. It really does. I don't expect 100% logic from a television show about an alien with two hearts whizzing around the galaxy and traveling through time. I really, really don't. But there's a limit.
We need groundwork.
Yeah, just a hint of naturalistic storytelling. Just a modicum, a song. Please. I beg of you.
Give us a tent pole.
And then the colours in the lab change from green to violet. And it's like, oh no, the lights. That means teleportation.
It does?
Does it?
I don't know, does it?
Like, here's the thing. I assumed, because they mentioned this neural net and how all these Dalek security drones were controlled by AI, I assumed that the Dalek would be either singularly or with a bunch of different Daleks that it cloned, controlling all the robot bodies remotely. But no, they teleport into the things, despite the fact that the Dalek shells are both designed to, help them move around and kill people, but also keep them alive. But Leo designed all of those robot bodies before he was controlled by the Dalek. So did the Dalek interfere with the manufacture of them because they're all like 3D printed? Because they never mentioned that, at least as far as I can remember.
Who knows? Who knows anymore?
And maybe I should have been tipped off to this by the fact that, despite the fact that they are supposed to be purely robotic, the Dalek security drones have a big, giant, empty space in the middle of them. Just like with nothing in there. Just like, what do you think was going to be in there? Just like a thermos of tea in case it wants to hand it a hot beverage.
Oscar the Grouch.
Maybe. I don't know. It's... Oh, God, if you think about this episode for more than a second, it punishes you for it. I don't want to be punished for thinking. I'm not in school anymore. And so the Daleks teleport into the drone to start packing people. And I will say this. The new Dalek designs, like the black and the red and the silver chrome, look really cool. I thought they looked really cool. We've been dealing with the same sort of, like, oh God. So, in 2005, a new design of the Daleks was announced and it was revealed in the episode called Dalek. Bit of a game giveaway. And it was really cool. And that's been the consistent design ever since then, because the BBC are so tight-fisted, they won't shell out for new designs. Not that hasn't stopped people from trying. Occasionally they've released new designs, given the Daleks a different look. Moffat tried to give us a multicolored rainbow Dalek version. But ever since then, they just keep on reverting back to the 2005 design. But here's the thing. In Old Who... There's some guy called Hugh just like, what? Someone mention my name?
Dr. Who.
Oh, God. Doctor Who, will you save the universe? No, I'm a podiatrist. Anyway.
He hangs out with Father Brown on the weekends.
Anyway. And so I thought, okay, so they released a new Dalek design. Is this one going to stick? And they're dead.
And they are.
Because then the Doctor's just like, oh shit, there's only one way going to do this, and it's a really bad idea. She sends out a beacon to like the main Dalek force, i.e. the old 2005 Daleks, that dispatch a Death Squad Daleks, which are like Dalek SAS, and they build these Daleks up like, oh, these are really cool Daleks, brutal, efficient, and like really, really scary. They do not act any different to any other Dalek we have ever seen in Doctor Who.
No, I mean, at least the cult of Skaro had these other individual personalities, but these guys are like these are like the most badass Daleks ever. They're just normal Daleks.
They don't act any different, and they keep referring to them as Dalek SAS, which,
again, really?
As someone who has familial ties to the SAS, tangential familial ties, but still very much ties, I find that kind of insulting. Please stop equating Daleks with the SAS.
If it's like the SS, that make much more sense, but really?
Like, I understand for a one-off comparison so that we, the audience, can fully understand what they're like. I'm fine. But they keep referring them to as that. Not like the Dalek Death Squad. No, just the Dalek SAS throughout the rest of the episode. And it's just like...
Please stop.
If I was in the SAS, I'd be a little bit offended. But anyway. Then the episode just devolves from there. So the Daleks, the new Daleks, start killing a bunch of people, and it is rather horrifying and really violent and cool, which is an odd way of describing it, but it's because they got like red lasers, and you see the classic skeletons as people are zapped and instantly killed. And it honestly brought me back to when I was 12 years old, seeing a Dalek for the first time and seeing how just unstoppable they were. And then waves and waves of these new Daleks come and instantly wipe them out. And I'm just thinking, oh, well, you know, my fear is immediately gone. Oh, God. And so the Doctor's like, okay, there's two stages of the plan. One, get Death Squad Daleks here. Step two, make sure that these new Daleks never find out I'm here. But then Robinson sees these new Daleks and suddenly, for no fucking reason, says, I'm going to abandon you and join up with them because I'm a coward and I think I can talk my way into surviving. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, all right, okay, cool. What are you basing that on? Just like pure arrogance? Okay, fine. And he goes, like, he says to the Doctor, I'm abandoning you, Doctor, because even though you've solved every problem I didn't even know I had so far in this episode, plus the last time we met, I'm going to assume that you can't save the day, even though you already said you had a plan, and I'm going to join the people that has already been described as genocidal fuckwits, because I'm a smarty pants. And he says that to the Doctor's face, and the Doctor's like, no, stop, come back, and does just nothing to stop him, while he slowly walks away from her towards the murderous, despotic aliens.
Yeah, ridiculous. We should just, like, jump after her and tackle him to the ground or something.
Yeah, and that's made me think, oh, I see. Oh, clever, clever. The Doctor clearly anticipated that Robertson would betray them and has factored that into the plans. He's the linchpin and he doesn't even know it. Yeah, spoiler alert, that's not what happens.
He doesn't have a plan.
No, and I'm going to get into why this frustrates me in a little bit. But so I thought then, okay, maybe that happened. Another alternative would be that Robertson is going to go up to the Daleks and says, hey, Daleks, I want to help you. And the Daleks like, we don't care, and zap, and he's dead. I'm just like, yay, he's dead. That doesn't happen either. He goes over to Daleks and says, I'm willing to betray humanity, and I can act as a guide for you. And they clearly state, we have no need for guides. Oh, really? Well, I know that the Doctor's here. Well, now that you've told us, you've pretty much given us all the useful information you possibly could, but we're still not going to kill you because you have plot armor. And oh god, he gets taken up to the Dalek mothership, and then the gang split up again. And Jack, Ryan, and Graham go into the ship to plant bombs, and then this really infuriated me. Graham says, all right, Ryan, you and me fighting aliens, they don't stand a chance against us bad boys. I'm thinking, yeah, Graham, this is the culmination of your relationship. And Ryan's going to be like, yeah, Granddad, this is awesome. I love doing this with you. But then Ryan's just like, no, shut up, Graham. Like, don't be weird. And I was thinking, wow, I already didn't like your character, but now I actively hate him.
Yeah. It does much for
How
character.
dare you be mean to Graham? Yeah. Graham is a sweet angel and needs to be protected.
Because I really assumed that one of them was going to get exterminated at this point. It's like, oh, they're building up to it. There's a Dalek go around the corner in the background. He's going to take them, surprise him and kill him. He misses.
Yeah, the Daleks miss. The Daleks are known for having the aim of stormtroopers. oh, God. And so, oh, God, when the Daleks do start to take over, they're unveiled as the security drones. I missed this out. That MP we mentioned earlier that has just been elected Prime Minister, this was fucking uncomfortable to watch. She says, what Britain needs now is security. Security in our jobs, security in our families, security in our borders, security in every way of life. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, this sounds wrong. This sounds kind of dogmatic. This sounds like what a lot of people over here in the UK and the US have been saying for a while now that has some very bad connotations. And this is a female character. And our last female Prime Minister had similar ideas and was not in office very long and left in a very kind of undignified and troubling way. And then the Daleks take over, just like, it's okay, it's just a glitch, we're working to stay in control, everything's fine. Daleks come up and say, like, hey, we're gonna kill you. And she's like, I don't surrender, dead. And I was thinking, like, wow, I couldn't enjoy any of that. I couldn't enjoy her dying because she went out in a moment of dignity. I couldn't enjoy the fact that she clearly had Britain's best interests at heart because she had such whacked out, horrible parallel to authoritarian ideals that we have right now in the UK. Because, like, our political system is a fucking nightmare. I don't care what your opinions are, whose policies you side with or whatever. We're not in a good situation right now. Liberal, Conservative, Labour, Tory party, whatever. It's a fucking nightmare. Also, Brexit's gone through.
Hooray.
No, unhooray.
Unhooray.
Oh, God. And so... and that happens, and it's just so uncomfortable to watch.
She felt like they were, apart from putting the dodgy political horrible stuff to one side, it felt like they're trying to do a rehash of Harriet Jones again.
Oh, which is another thing I didn't really like the way that ended. But because then her character got redeemed somewhat, and actually you thought, because the character Harriet Jones was introduced as a member of Parliament who was really idealistic and very nice. She got elected to Prime Minister, and everyone's just like, yay, Harriet Jones, and everyone's like, this is going to be really good. But then she blows up an alien ship as it was leaving, and the Doctor's like, hey, you can't do that, they were surrendering. And she was just like, yeah, but they were going to go out and tell everyone about Earth and put us in more danger. Like, I'm sorry, Doctor, but this had to be done. And then he manages to subtly depose her. Yeah. And you're left wondering, like, did she deserve that, or was the Doctor justified? And then later on, Harriet Jones pops up as the former Prime Minister, who's just like, look, I warned the Doctor that stuff like this Dalek invasion that Scott and Mark mentioned earlier was going to happen, and he didn't listen. And this whole time I'm thinking, wow, this whole time I thought the Doctor was in the right, but actually maybe she was. And she was a really interesting character, played brilliantly by Penelope Wilton of Downton Abbey and various other things. And it was just Russell T Davies Doctor Who, and to a certain extent Moffat Doctor Who, had this great ability for introducing side characters, minor characters, that were so full and rich and complex and got brought up in numerous interesting ways, and it posed really interesting questions. No longer. No more. I'm not going to remember this character's name. I know she's only turned up once and Harriet Jones turned up a couple of times. But there's nothing here that makes me want to come back. I miss so many small, minor characters. Like, fucking hell, I miss a tired, red, spiky conker called Banneker Flatter. I miss that little guy. who turned up once. Banner Cavalata was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not going to miss Ryan, who's been here for 2 seasons and change, at all. And, oh, God. Anyway, so, long story short, all the Daleks get killed by the previous Daleks because the Daleks are obsessed with racial purity, which is something that has been present in Doctor Who, and it is, that is a callback that was worth making, I thought. But I half expected that the new Daleks would kill the old Daleks. Like, the old Daleks were just like, no, you are impure, you are a mutation that must be exterminated. But then the new Daleks were just like, but you are inferior, we are better, exterminate you. And then they managed to kill them. It's just like, oh, wow, this new breed of Daleks. Hell, this could have been precursor to a brand new storyline, like a Dalek civil war.
That'd been awesome.
Because that's how the Daleks originally got started. They were from this planet Skaro with 2 different people on there. And the planet was dying. And this one guy, Davros, was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to make sure we survive by horribly mutating us because I'm obsessed with racial purity. And then he created the Daleks. And you could have expanded on that by including a Dalek civil war. It's like these new breed of Daleks fighting against the old Daleks. And the universe getting caught in the crossfire. And no, they're just disposable and just killed off very easily. But now we've got rid of the new Daleks, now we've got to deal with the old Daleks. And some of them get blown up by Jack. Oh, and also Jack, Graham and Ryan rescue Robertson, even though he was very eager to sell out humanity and kind of didn't want to be rescued.
Don't rescue me. Don't take me in your arms.
I don't know. And then the Doctor tricks all the remaining Daleks into going into the other TARDIS we mentioned earlier, which she disguised as a regular TARDIS, and then self-destructed that TARDIS by sending them into the void between dimensions. Here's the thing, though. TARDISes are organic, and they have a degree, if not completely, have self-awareness and intelligence. So the Doctor just murdered an innocent TARDIS.
She rescued. Gallifrey's gone, so there's only now 2 TARDISes left. But now she just murdered another thing from Gallifrey. It's like, ugh.
Like, I'm not saying it wasn't a clever plan, but and also, all of the Daleks, all of the remaining Daleks go into the TARDIS. Did none of them think, I'd better stay out here in case it's a trap, or because we've got other humans to exterminate, or because I was distracted by something shiny? Look at that. That's cool right over there. Oh, you're all gone. Oh, you're all dead, but I'm still here. That's okay. I don't know. And so all the Daleks are gone. Everyone's fine. Yay. And this is where I want to bring up the plan. Like I said, I thought that the Doctor factored in Robertson's betrayal into her plan. Like, it was going to be a distraction or something. Turns out no. If there is one character that you cannot make look stupid, weird, yes. Eccentric, yes. Emotionally mature, absolutely. But stupid, like intellectually stupid, that you cannot do, it's the Doctor, because she is a genius. Her intelligence dwarfs that of Earth's greatest scholars and thinkers. That doesn't mean she can't make mistakes. That doesn't mean she can't be tricked or bamboozled or not think of something. But when you have a guy that is clearly two-faced, who's clearly opportunistic, who's clearly looking for a way to survive at any cost, and you think, oh, he wouldn't possibly betray us, you're stupid. And I'm fine with that if you're a naive little human, but not the Doctor. The Doctor is smart than that. And it's hard. Trust me, it is hard to write very smart characters. God knows Benioff and Weiss didn't manage it, Tyrion. Oh, God. But then George R. R. Martin did. George R. R. Martin very much did. And it's just... it's insulting to the character, and it's insulting to us as the audience. I thought that she had planned it all out, that she was one step ahead of him, because that's what the Doctor's known for, thinking 2 steps ahead. She is defeated so many villains, so many despots, so many intergalactic monsters by not punching them, not blowing them up, but just by outthinking them. For the sheer force of her intelligence. And you turned her, again with the Game of Thrones references, into Daenerys. She forgot about the Iron Fleet, the Doctor forgot about Robertson's obvious betrayal. And then, when he openly betrayed her right in front of her, she didn't make any move to stop him, aside from "Oi, what do you think you're doing? Come back here. Oh, I guess all I can do is shake my fist at you."
Yeah.
And it's just, you don't know what you're doing, Chris Chibnall. You don't understand this character. You don't. And that's fine, but you shouldn't have this job. Go and write some other great show where you do understand the characters, where the characters of your own creation, that I'm sure you would work very well. Like, every new writer, every new showrunner brings in new companions for the Doctor that are very much their own creation. But the Doctor, whilst she sometimes gets like a personality upgrade with each regeneration, different quirks are focused on more than others, the Doctor is very much the same. The core tenets of the Doctor are that they are kind, that there is a little bit of darkness to them, that they are otherworldly but still very much human, and that they are smart. Very smart, and possibly a little bit egotistical, but mainly smart. Every single version of the Doctor has been a genius. And you had the Doctor make this... Like, I can't overemphasize how important it is that we have this character whose main weapon is her brain. Not just because it's a great character to have in general, but also because it's a female character. Like, because the Doctor is now a woman. And too often, when writers come up with a quote-unquote strong female character, which we do need, don't get me wrong, we do need, but their solution to that is to give them a gun or a sword or something and no personality and just have them kick the monsters into submission. We need characters that are smart, because it's not only is it inspirational, not only is it a great representation, but it's also interesting. It's an interesting character. That's why I love the Doctor so much, because they were so smart.
Although, have you noticed? Out of the 4 the fam, only the white guy has a lot of personality and exploration.
Well, at least has the most, yeah. Graham gets the most development and is the most fully rounded. Yaz comes close.
Close.
But, I mean, the only thing that Ryan has had to deal with is the fact that he's got an odd relationship with his dad and can't ride a bike.
That's because, well, when they first, and said he had dyspraxia, it's like, oh, I have dyspraxia. Finally, a character I can relate to. Then he falls off a bike once, and that's it.
It doesn't get brought up again. I honestly forgot that he was dyspraxic because they only mention it once.
Yeah, because talking personally now, which I don't really like doing much, dyspraxia comes with a lot of anxiety, self-confidence issues. I can't write properly. I find social conversations be a pain in the ass, apart from talking to you, because I like talking to crazy people.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome. But, and I felt like there really wasn't a way that they really explained him. It doesn't contribute to his so-called character at all. He's just very much a blank slate as a character.
Except when they bring up his daddy issues. That's his personality, daddy issues. And if you're going to bring up something like dyspraxia or dyslexia or any kind of learning disability or anything like that, it doesn't have to be a focus. It doesn't have to be the sum total of the character, but exactly. It is relevant. It's relevant in the lives of people who have that, so it's got to be relevant in the life of this character. And not necessarily something that needs to be struggled, to be overcome, but something that you have to accept that it's part of the life and it's going to inform the character. It doesn't inform the character, it's just a bullet point in their bio.
It shouldn't be their overarching personality trait, because it's not. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, but nor should it be ignored entirely.
Exactly.
It's not difficult. If there is one thing I want on my tombstone, it's, for God's sake, you fuckers, just pick a reasonable middle ground. That's it. That's my ethos as a person, as a human being, as a man. It's just like, don't go to extremes. Just, I mean, some people say, oh, you shouldn't be like moderate. You shouldn't pick a middle ground. It's like, why not? Sometimes you do need to go one end of the scale as opposed to the other. But most of the time in life, you can get far just by a decent middle ground, a balance. That's all you need. And this character is unbalanced. And because of that, he feels empty and hollow. And the show feels empty and hollow. And Doctor Who should never be empty and hollow. It's more than a show where just stuff happens. It's a show where stuff matters. So the Daleks are destroyed, yay. And who was the hero of the hour? Apparently, Jack Robertson. Apparently, Earth decided to have some sort of aneurysm and randomly decided this one guy, despite no evidence supporting it, saved the entire Earth. They never explain it. I can assume that he lied about it, obviously. But you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the second live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie by Michael Bay, where it turns out fucking Job from Arrested Development lied and said that he saved New York from Shredder, despite the fact that there is no evidence to support that, and everyone just goes along with it.
Dear.
Why would you think BoJack Horseman saved the city? Why would you think that? I'm not saying you can't think that. I'm just asking why. And everyone does, and then there's talk about him becoming president again. And I'm of two minds about this, because on the one hand, I wanted him to have some severe comeuppance, because he basically sold out all of humanity. On the other hand, this is a very fun character, and it's cool to see what slimy, duplicitous, bastardy stuff he's going to get up to next. That's interesting. But you have to go deeper, you have to think, you have to provide motivation and explanation, and don't provide too much explanation, don't talk about it too much, but don't just expect us, the audience, to accept whatever half-baked tripe you serve up. You've got to put in a bit more thought. And then the Doctor's like, okay, day saved. Let's go to the meringue galaxy where everyone's meringue. Because I assume that Chris Chibnall looked up a random word generator, it came up with meringue, and I thought, sure, why not? That's funny. It's not funny. It's not funny, Chris Chibnall. No, it's not funny.
No, it's not funny. I mean, it doesn't even sound. It sounds stupid. I mean, what was it? I don't know which episode it was where Matt Smith says that a planet is on a honeymoon with a sun or something like that. So that sounds interesting. Let's go there. Let's go to the meringue plate. What?
Ah, God. Or even it's something small like that ties into another joke, like
Titan.
When the Doctor was about to regenerate from the 9th Doctor to the 10th Doctor, he said, "Let's go to the planet Barcelona, where the dogs have got no noses."
That's fine.
How do they smell? Terrible. It's like, that's funny, but it's just lol so random, and that's not very funny, especially in the off-hand way. But then Ryan's just like, yeah, so I'm kind of over the whole traveling the galaxy and traveling through time stuff. Like, I'm going to stay here defending the Earth. And Yaz is like, well, I'm not really done with the Doctor yet, so I want to stay. And the Doctor, actually, it's really good for Jodie Whittaker. This is some of her best acting in the whole episode, because she's just like, oh God, if I could go back in time and go back like 10 minutes after I first left them before I became trapped in prison, and everything would be fine, because she's very socially awkward and anxious, and she has very close emotional ties to people in this incarnation. But she knows that she can't do that. She can't interfere with the timeline like that. It's kind of heartbreaking on her end. Tosin Cole gives us absolutely nothing in his performance. He sounds like he just couldn't care less about being here anymore. So it's just like, see, you wouldn't want to be here. But then we get to Graham.
Yeah, Graham's like, oh God, Graham.
So Graham's just like, Doc, I loved traveling with you, and I kind of want to do it more, but I don't want to miss out on my grandson's life anymore. And just like, you know what, Graham, I respect that. Respect the hell out of you. Brandon Walsh gives a great performance. He really does. The character comes to a natural fulfillment, I think. We could have had more of him. I would have liked to have had more of him. But he stuck around for his grandson. And that's a motivation I can get behind. Chibnall, if you can do it then, why can't you do it for anyone else? And
Ryan's reaction is great.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you're staying? Cool.
I'd rather have the house to myself. So, for goodness sake, will someone please just throw his ass off the TARDIS?
Oh, God, it's so infuriating. It makes me think the writers don't like him either, and they just want to make us just like him as much as possible. Like, no, this could be a fun, bittersweet ending to this character's journey. But then we get... Oh, God. So we cut to Ryan and Graham on the hill where we first saw them in the first episode of, their characters. Desperately trying to get Ryan to ride a bike again, and he keeps on failing. Kind of funny. But they still got psychic paper, and they keep on talking about how there's like gravel monsters in Norway and all other mysterious disappearances going on in the world. They just think like, nah, let's just stay here and try and ride a bike. And just like, I get what they were going for, but it's not quite there yet. But it's close enough. It's fine. It's a nice, sweet moment with Graham encouraging Ryan to keep on getting on that bike. And Ryan, to his credit, does keep getting on the bike. It's like, there's something there. And then as they're riding along, a visage of Ryan's dead grandmother and, Graham's wife appears before them, smiles at them angelically, and disappears. And I just thought, well, you fucked that up. You've introduced a ghost for no reason. Bit too on the nose. It's subtlety. Heard of it? Oh, and then they say, oh, the sun was in our eyes, when we can clearly see the sun is behind them. And yet when Ghost Grace turns up, the sun was in front of them. It's a really poor bit of continuity.
Ouch.
And it really ruins the moment. And then they're done. And so now the Doctor and Yaz are traveling through time, with Yaz not quite ready to let go of the Doctor just yet. And do we get a little hint about what's next for the remaining two members of the fam? No, because honestly, this production had to deal with COVID, and so a lot of it had to be done post-production remotely, and we don't have any more new footage of the next season. Okay, fine, I can live with that. And so this episode ends on just a great empty feeling.
Well, there is the after credits teaser, so to speak, if you didn't switch off by then.
I skipped forward a little bit, but I didn't notice anything. The Doctor will return.
John Bishop is going to be in the next season.
The British stand-up comedian / actor John Bishop.
That John Bishop.
Cool. I guess I'm going to rewatch that. I watched this on BBC iPlayer, and I didn't. I thought I went to the end of the credits, and there wasn't.
It was after the credits ended, so it might have just been like a separate announcement. They show here. There's a bloke talking about random stuff, and we see this bloke going back and forth in the background, putting stuff in the back of I assume it's like a DIY van. And he turns around, it's like, oh, it's John Bishop. It's like John Bishop coming soon.
Okay, John Bishop is not a bad actor, and he's a very, very talented stand-up comedian. He's very, very funny. He doesn't have quite the star power you think he has, BBC. Like, okay, cool, he's going to be in the next season. That's mildly interesting. It's like when I found out Lee Mack was going to be in the previous season. Okay, I like him on Would I Lie to You? Funny guy. It's not a big deal. Chris Noth is a bigger star than he is, technically. Like, I'm not saying I don't like John Bishop or Lee Mack. It's just, like, that's not what's gonna bring me to the next episode. Like, the Doctor, I care. you want to maybe show clips of the Doctor getting up to some sort of wacky shenanigan? No? You think what's going to make me come back is John Bishop? You don't know me at all. Just, like, it's not unappealing, but it's not appealing. And that is a perfect summation of this episode. Just writers not knowing what the audience wants and not understanding the characters they've been supposedly laden with. And it all... Do you know what the biggest question I have left? Because this episode left me feeling so empty and so devoid of any true feeling other than frustration and misery. My question is this. What was the revolution? The episode is called Revolution of the Daleks. What was revolutionized? What was overturned? What was replaced with the Daleks? The Daleks were in it, and stuff happened with the Daleks. I wouldn't call it a revolution. If anything, because you would think, okay, so if the Daleks, these new Daleks, did attempt to overthrow the old Daleks, that would be a revolution. Whether or not it succeeded or not, it would be a revolution. But that's not what happened. The new Daleks come, and they're just like, we're going to kill all humans. Old Daleks come. Oi, you can't do that because you're impure. Well, we should do because we're fine, honestly. No, you're not. Die. And that's it. They didn't say, oh, you old Daleks are crap. We're the new generation, and we're going to overthrow you. Zap. Oh, whoops, we're dead. No. It's just... It's... Again, it's like the classic Hollywood buzzword movie title sort of thing. Yeah. Revolution. Revenge. It's all those classic, generic sort of movie titles that have no real meaning and don't add anything. The Chronicles of. What's being chronicled here? Who's chronicling them? Riddick? Is Riddick chronicling stuff? He doesn't seem to be. It's a movie with Riddick in it, but it's not a compiled stories involving Riddick. It's one story. Then what? No! No! N-O spells no! What the fuck?
If they do a Chronicles of the Dalek, I'm out.
I wouldn't put it past them. They're just coming up with random names and then putting Dalek at the end of it.
I mean, you could put interesting spin in it. You could make like an anthology episode with Daleks across time and space. That would be at least interesting.
I think they're doing something like that in expanded media of Doctor Who.
I don't. Okay.
Oh, and they're so desperate to get people excited about Doctor Who that rather than putting any effort into the this new season, they're getting David Tennant's 10th Doctor back.
And Chris Eccleston.
And Chris Eccleston in this new Forever Time Lord thing or whatever for Big Finish Audio. And it's just like, okay, that's cool, that's fun. I'm sure that's going to be great. But maybe you could also put a bit more effort into the main television series, the bit that this whole thing is expanded upon. Again, going back to Star Wars, we're getting the same thing as Star Wars. Like, the side miscellaneous media is getting really good, but like the main series, for which everything is the nucleus of this whole franchise, is sort of withering and dying because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's... Oh, God. And this whole... This is just the build-up of all my frustrations with this series ever since Chris Chibnall came on. It's just not good. Not everything about it is bad. There are some good stuff about it. There are some good performances and some good ideas and good stories, but they're starting to become in the minority. I'm not going to pretend like every episode of Russell T Davies's run was good. Forever Love and Monsters. But actually, you know what? My secret shame when I was a kid, not as an adult, but when I was a kid, I liked that episode. Anyway, but
I do wonder if maybe we should have seen this coming, because I think Chris Chibnall tries to sometimes he shoves too much in to episodes, and there's just not enough room to breathe. Because what's the episode called? Is it Dinosaurs in Space? Or Dinosaurs on a Spaceship? Because you got the
I think that was Stephen Moffat.
No, Chibnall wrote that one.
I don't remember
He did. It was the episode where they introduced Rory's dad, played by Mr. Weasley.
Yeah, that was a Stephen Moffat episode.
Was it?
Well, that was done during Stephen Moffat's
run.
Yeah,
it was written. Chris Chibnall was writing episodes during that point.
Oh, okay.
Because in that episode, you had the Doctor, you had Amy Rory, introduce Rory's dad, you had the Hunter guy, you had the Egyptian Queen, you had David Warwick, you had the dinosaurs on the spaceship, the people to blow up the spaceship, you had the robot dudes walking around. It's like, there's just so much going on in this episode. Why don't they just...
Oh, Nefertiti was in it?
Nefertiti. It's like you have like 20 different subplots going on at once, and you got to do it in 45 minutes. Like, don't do that. And maybe we should have...
It speaks to a lack of confidence in your own writing ability, that you're just like, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing. This is so outside my comfort zone, so I'll just throw all the sci-fi shit. Just throw it all at the screen and hope something sticks. And you can't write Doctor Who like that. Some of the best Doctor Who episodes have been really simple ones, really effective ones, because it just focuses on the characters. And sometimes, like, what I noticed, like most of, as much as I like it, most of Ryan and Graham's development of the course of 2 seasons was them just having little asides for a minute or two during the course of the episode while they were hunting down aliens. And that's where the relationship grew. And just don't get me wrong, the relationship growing was interesting, but that's exclusively how they did it. That's all I remember them doing, is just having little asides every now and again. And there was no room for the characters to just sit and breathe. Before, David Tennant's Doctor would sit down in someone's kitchen and have a chat, because that was fun for them. Here, they're so busy running around after the various madcap alien stuff on the various locations. Like, I swear to God, the hardest working person on this show, aside from some of the actors, is the location scout, because they just go to so many different places. And God, I keep talking about how I like the human elements, but the truth is, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Sci-fi, fantasy, historical perspective, documentary even. Doesn't matter what the genre is. If you miss the human element, if you take that away, no one in your audience is going to relate to the characters or the story or the plot or anything, and it'll just be the audio-visual equivalent of jingling your keys in front of a baby. That's all it is. Doctor Who should not be like that. Yeah, it's all cool and flashy like Daleks and Cybermen and all sorts of stuff going on, but the core of it is this real human element about this lonely, godlike figure who's so, not like a new god, like an old god, like one that's so very, very human, wandering the stars. He's fire and ice. He burns at the center of time and space, and he's wonderful. It's God. That what I just said there. That's a quote from a 2-parter episode where the Doctor gives up being a Time Lord and forces himself to become human to hide from a bunch of aliens that are tracking him down. He doesn't remember being a Time Lord. He thinks he's human, and this human person is frail and weak and scared, but he's not unlikable. He's very, very human. But he's lacking that spark that the Doctor had. And it's a credit to David Tennant's acting ability, because, man, he knocked it out of the part. But then it becomes apparent that he has to give up being human and essentially cease to exist in order to allow the Doctor to come back to defeat these aliens. And he does that. And then it's revealed that the reason why the Doctor was running was not to escape these aliens, but because he was being kind to them. And because they have tracked him down, and because they unleashed their wrath upon human beings, he unleashes his wrath upon them and subjects them to some of the worst fates you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And it's revealed the reason why he was running from them was not because he was scared, but because he was being kind.
That's a great line.
Yes, and that's what the Doctor is. The Doctor is complicated. Both Moffat and Russell T Davies, certainly more Russell T Davies than Moffat, understood this. This Doctor, as much as I like Jodie Whittaker's performance, is not complicated. The show is no longer complicated anymore. It's not layered. It's not complex. It tries to present certain ideas and plots that are complex, but it does so in a very simplistic way. Oh, look, what's this desolate wasteland planet we're living on? It turns out it was Earth! Bum, bum, bum. And then you just see the wagging finger of Chris Chibnall, just like, don't do global warming, kids. Okay, do you maybe want to explore the various reasons why people pollute and, what is happening to a planet and ways we can fix it, or but ways that some things are our fault but other things aren't? No, just like the planet's destroyed and it's all your fault unless you do something. Do you maybe want to go into like the capitalist reasons why it happens, like the socioeconomic reasons, or how it affects people of disparate social statuses. No, just don't pollute. Wave finger wave. Shame on all of you. It's insulting. Which begs the question, considering how much Doctor Who has devolved over the past couple of years, why do we keep watching it?
Hope.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to be facetious, but you know what? You're absolutely right. Hope is what keeps me going. Hope that someone will come along, a better showrunner, a better writer, better ideas, or the writers will suddenly get their heads out of their asses and just realize, okay, let's actually try this time. And just hope that it'll get better, because a show that's been going on since the early 60s is going to have its down moments. It's happened before. It will happen again, but it's hope that the show will get better and our patience will be rewarded. And we'll just be able to say, oh, remember when Doctor Who was kind of crap? It's much better than that now. We're doing much, much better. But we've had 2 overall crap seasons that most people don't like, that have made some very bad, objectively bad character decisions, acting decisions, directorial decisions, and narrative decisions that have not been popular for good reason. And hopefully it will get better. But you know what? Hope can only sustain you for so long. I can't get by on a good episode now and again. I've been watching this show since I was 12 years old. And it's amazing that it's lasted this long. Don't get me wrong. Doctor Who is officially the longest running sci-fi show, and I think maybe even the longest running TV show in history. That's not nothing. But you need to put more effort in. BBC, you need to put more effort in. I'm not saying no one is trying. I'm not saying you're not putting effort in. But you need to do it less on effects and location and coming out with crazy, wacky alien designs, only to immediately dump them and reuse the old ones. Put it into the characters, the story, the human core, because that's what we care about. We still talk about Rose Tyler because of how human she was, and Rory and Amy, and Martha and Bill, and not the other fucking one with the tartan skirt. What's her face? No, yeah, not her. Don't like her because she wasn't very human. She just wasn't. That's why people don't like her much, because she felt very inhuman. I don't know. But all the other characters did. And that's why we care about them. We care about this silly, stupid show about a madman in a big blue box traveling through time and space. Not because it's a madman traveling through time and space, but because we see something of ourselves in the madman. And also something beyond us. People talk about how they relate to Marvel characters but aspire to be like DC characters. It's a very simplified way of looking at it, but that's what people say, and that's not an entirely unfair comparison. And Doctor is kind of an amalgamation of those 2 concepts together. We both recognize ourselves in her and aspire to be like her. And you need to focus on her, not in a self-congratulatory wanky way like Stephen Moffat did, but just in a human way like Russell T Davies did. I'm almost tempted to say, come back, Russell T Davies, but you know what? He's off doing his own thing. He doesn't need to come back. He's fine. But something has got to change. Something has. And I'll be waiting until it does. And I don't want to skip it just on the off chance that someone will come along and say, oh no, it's better now. I want to stick with it, but I don't want to be punished for that. And right now, I'm kind of being punished for liking Doctor Who. By Doctor Who. Anything else you want to talk about this episode of Doctor Who in general, Mark?
No, I think you've covered it.
I should say so. On that note, then, we're going to end the show. What a great way to kick off the new fucking year. For all acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining me today.
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all of your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
Well fucking said. But if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of the other super episodes. We have talked about Doctor Who before in the past. I believe we talked about like the last episode Moffat ever did, so go back and check that out. You can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much. Start that again. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!